All right, thank you everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for today's TFA Artist Circle. For those who are new to the Fearless Artists and what we do, our mission is to empower young, new, emerging artists that are mission driven, that have a purpose behind what they're doing with their work. And we do that by providing access to coaching, to a community, and to art buyers who care about social change. So we're really passionate about the TFA community, our network that extends all over the world, with over 300 artists having shown at our pop-up galleries over the past couple of years, from 70 different cities, over 30 countries all over the world. Really excited to be facilitating these connections. And as always, every Sunday with our TFA Artist Circle, I'm so delighted to bring in some fantastic speakers to join us and share their knowledge, their perspective on their own industries and what work they do in navigating that as a creative person. So thank you again for joining us for our Artist Circle today. Really excited to learn from our guest speakers. I'm very much looking forward to these conversations. I am recording this meeting here, so if you want to find it again later on, if one of our speakers or one of our audience members makes a really awesome comment that you want to revisit, we'll have that sent out in our email newsletter following the session today. So that is that. I want to ask everyone, if you don't mind just staying on mute unless you are speaking, just so we eliminate any excess background noise. But I do encourage you to please participate in the chat, send in any questions, comments, any responses to what our speakers are saying today. And that is a great way to connect and communicate with other folks on the call. You can also use the raise hand feature that's at the bottom of your screen, and that'll just alert me so I can call on you to ask your question. So that's kind of logistics for today. Before I introduce our speakers, I just want to give a couple quick little announcements here. So just some little reminders. You saw it probably on the scrolling screen overhead, but we do have some TFA merch available now. It looks really awesome. I wear mine all the time. You can find everything at the shop tab that's up on the top right of the screen at tfapopup.com. I know in the past we've been using our link tree as like the main way of finding everything and using that through Instagram, but now we have everything up there on tfapopup.com. So that's kind of your like one-stop shop to get everything you're looking for there. We'll have all of our upcoming events listed there as well. Also, one other thing here is this QR code will lead you to a donation page. If you're willing and able to provide a donation to the Fearless Artist in support of our Young Curators program, we're really, really excited to bring as many of our students down to Miami for our big show in December, bringing as many of them as possible. And I'm really looking forward to that opportunity, and any donations can really help us a great deal with the production and execution of this gallery. And so on that note, coming up soon, we just had, of course, back in June, our fantastic pop-up gallery, our Young Curator Showcase in New York City. It was such an incredible event. We had over like close to 1,500 folks show up throughout that week, an incredible fashion show. I think it was like 18 panels throughout the event, and so many fun connections, lots of art sold, and really incredible opportunities for our students, as well as our artists, alumni, and guests. So it was so much fun, and we can't wait to replicate it, but then also make it bigger and better than ever before during Art Basel Miami coming up in December 2022. Again, we're going to have different themed days following innovation, music and movement, fashion and beauty, and social justice, all around our theme of the liberation of beauty. And we'll definitely be populating the tfapopup.com website more and more over the next couple of weeks with more information. So if you're an artist looking to show your work, if you're interested in potentially volunteering, if you just want to attend and be a guest, that will be up there on the site. So make sure you bookmark that, save it in your notes, whatever, and follow us on Instagram and across our social media platforms so you don't miss out on anything. I'm going to pop our Instagram right here in the chat. Awesome. And so again, I encourage everyone, please use the chat, raise your hand, unmute yourself to make any comments and ask questions throughout the call. But I don't want to waste any more time. I want to quickly just go over next week. We have one more artist circle, or we have our weekly artist circle coming back again. We'll be talking with Monsi, who's an incredible photojournalist. She's a photo intern at the Washington Post. So you can RSVP for that at tfapopup.com. That link will be available on the website as soon as we finish this session today. And now, finally, I'm very much looking forward to introduce our featured speakers for today. I am so delighted to have Kyra Armstrong and Hannah Sessler here with us. Kyra, Hannah, and I all attended George Washington University, and we're in the program of theater and dance at the Corcoran School of Arts and Design. And I'm really incredibly amazed by the fantastic work that they've been doing over the past couple of years. So I'm really excited to get to chat with them today. I'm gonna basically just introduce everyone one by one, and then we'll have like more of a group conversation on the theater and television industries and what that's gonna look like over the next couple of years. So big virtual round of applause for Kyra and Hannah. Welcome. We're so excited to have you both here. All right. So first of all, Kyra, I'm going to shout out you first. I'm so excited to have you here. For our audience, Kyra is a New York City-based producer, arts administrator, and activist originally from Boston. She's passionate about accessibility and audience engagement in the performing arts and works to combine her love of theater with her desire to affect positive change in everything she does. She's a third-year theater management and producing MFA candidate at Columbia University, interim managing director at Broadway for All, which was a 2022 Tony Honors recipient, which is super exciting, and lead producer of award-winning play Once on Rumspringa by Ellis Stump. And so she's done a lot of past work, including the Broadway Advocacy Coalition, TDF, Columbia University, Kennedy Center, and Wicked on Broadway. So thank you so much for joining us, Kyra. First of all, I just want to highlight again Broadway for All, which you're now the interim managing director, and getting the 2022 Tony Honors for Excellence in Theater. That's fantastic. So huge congratulations. How exciting was that? What did that mean to you?
Oh my gosh, it was a whirlwind. It was very unexpected. So I've been working at Broadway for All since January, and it really just came out of left field when the Tony nominators reached out to us and said that they were interested in honoring us this year. And since then, it's just been a whirlwind of meetings and press events and everything. But we're so grateful that the Tony Committee is noticing the work that we're doing and providing us with this platform to really share in our mission.
Perfect. And tell us all a little more about the mission. So what does Broadway for All do, and like what is your role?
Yeah, so we are Manhattan-based, but we work nationally to equip young artists and professionals with programming, community, and vision to build a more inclusive and powerful arts industry. So what that translates to is we have a summer conservatory program. We also have a program called Access for All, where we work to bring New York City students to see Broadway shows free of charge. We also have different training programs and really just working to equalize the entry point into theater and television because it is at this point an industry that is challenging to enter if you do not have a certain amount of privilege. And so that's really the work that we're trying to do, is working to provide those stepping stones and really equalize it as much as we can. And so my job as the managing director really focuses on more of the managerial and administrative side of things, a lot of budgeting, a lot of working with our accountant, but also just managing events, working to just sort of keep things running at a basic level. But I'm so proud and honored to be a part of this organization and be able to offer my skills to be able to help us move forward.
Awesome. Thank you, Kyra. I love the mission of Broadway for All. I definitely want to talk more about accessibility in these industries later on in our conversation today. So thank you so much for bringing that all up. Now I want to kind of step back a little. Let's go back to the beginning. Before I introduce Hannah to have kind of our joint conversation, I want to ask you, how did you first discover your passion for the performing arts world? Where did you take off with that passion and that drive?
Absolutely. So I've always been in a family that really values the arts. So I did music all growing up, but never really theater. But then in high school, I joined the performing arts company, doing costumes, all backstage work. And through that, I really found just that I loved it. I loved the people and the environment, and I loved being able to put something on stage that could really influence the audience. And so from there, I moved into GW, as you know, really looking at a stage management track. That took me to Wicked on Broadway, where I was working as the stage management intern for a summer. And while I was there, I was introduced to Stephen Jacobson, who is the head of the theater management and producing concentration at Columbia, where I'm now a student. And he and I discussed what I wanted for my future career, and it became clear that producing and management was really my goal trajectory. And so I was accepted into the Columbia MFA program. I started there, and then, I mean, as you saw from my bio, sort of jumped around a bunch of places, and that's led me here to Broadway for All.
Awesome. Thank you. It's also so great to hear, I always love during these artist circles, just like hearing everyone's kind of journey to where they are now. It's so much fun. I want to introduce our next speaker as well. So here we have Hannah Sessler. Hannah is a New York-based actor, writer, and producer, an alumna of the George Washington University with degrees in theater and journalism. She is currently an associate producer for The Kitchen, the Emmy-nominated series on Food Network. She's also the personal assistant to Broadway playwright Douglas Lyons, and served as production assistant on the 2020 Tokyo and 2022 Beijing Olympic Games for NBC Sports. So huge welcome to Hannah. So excited to have you here. I am obsessed with the Olympics. So I want to ask you first, what was it like? I know, just getting out of college, establishing your career and jumping into working on something as incredibly amazing as the Olympic Games, especially with the pandemic going on.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having us, Maggie. It was absolutely wild to go from college, where everything kind of got shut down in senior year in the middle of a pandemic, to the Olympics, which are something I think is just so much bigger than everybody because it's so representative of everyone, but also is just literally on a global scale. It's massive. So to be able to do that from New York, because the majority of people for both Tokyo and Beijing were working stateside because of the COVID protocols across the world. So everybody was here, like including the voiceover talent. Basically, unless you were an athlete or a coach, you weren't abroad. So configuring that with NBC, which was literally like 1,400 employees, was absolutely unreal. But the fact that we were able to make it happen and give a world show on the world stage was pretty incredible. It was an opportunity to be a part of something bigger than myself, and great experience. So I jumped at the chance when it came my way.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I'm so excited about that. I just think it's the coolest thing. I want to ask you, I stole this picture from your Instagram because I had to. And I want to ask you that same question I asked Kyra as well. Kind of taking a step back, how did you first discover your passion for this industry? I know, like, studying theater and journalism in school as well. Kind of what led you to that?
Yeah, definitely. So like Kyra, I grew up in a very musical, theater, art-centric household. My mom was a producer of kids' TV, and my two sisters and I were very active dancers growing up. So the school musicals were always a given that we did. And I loved the idea that you could all learn something from each of the characters. Like the shows, whether they were musicals or straight plays, they served as a vehicle to impart wisdom. Like people were learning things and you were teaching the audience something without physically sitting them down and teaching them like, here's something you should be doing differently. So I loved that aspect. And I loved the idea that you could you could tell stories and shine lights on stories that needed to be told. So as I got older, that kind of evolved into, I want to do this in college and learn how to kind of channel everything into action. So it definitely started at a young age. My grandparents, they used to make us watch old timey musicals instead. Like we always wanted to watch Peter Pan, but we had to watch a scene of Brigadoon first, which was so annoying as a child. But I laugh now because it absolutely shaped who I am and what I grew up and what I wanted to do with my life.
Awesome. Thank you, Hannah. Both of you like mentioned growing up in like families that are like very much arts involved or just had a lot of creativity in there as well. I know this is just reminding me, I had a conversation with our Young Curators program, which is our business education course that runs over the course of the year. And one thing we were talking about yesterday with some of our students, or some of them were bringing up, not growing up like that, or like not really having support of or like families that didn't necessarily see the arts as like a viable option for a career path. So I'm just curious, throwing in a question, just putting you all on the spot here. What advice would you give to someone that's like really interested in exploring a creative industry, but maybe doesn't have like the people around them necessarily in support of that?
I would say it starts at the local level. There are definitely local communities that do like local shows, kind of summer stocky. And there's so many opportunities within there. I would say keep looking and keep going for it, even if it's not directly in your sphere of what it seems to be possible. Because I think the pandemic might have changed a couple people's minds about it, because I challenge you to find anyone that made it through the pandemic without watching a movie or listening to a song or sitting on the couch watching TV, binging something. Like art saved a lot of people's lives indirectly because everybody was stuck inside for a year. So I understand that sometimes that's not necessarily accessible, but it is there. So I would suggest reaching out. And also, even if it's not necessarily available to you, if you read a book or a play, you could create your own little show in your very own house. So there are opportunities everywhere, I think. I think just the desire to keep going and keep looking for them should definitely be prevalent.
I definitely agree. I think that the idea that doing art as a career means like you have to hit the top pinnacle, that's not the reality. And moving into the field, absolutely, it is an industry that is really siloed and gatekept. But luckily, I think that now more than ever, there are conversations happening and organizations coming to realize that that is not the way that we can move forward as an industry. And so I really believe that now more than ever is the time that people will be moving towards paid internships and just positions that allow people to enter without having to like just requiring an unbelievable amount of privilege. So I hope that that's going to allow a lot more people to begin their journey in this industry.
Awesome. Thank you both. I love those responses. I want to continue like hearing both of your perspectives on these next couple of questions. My first one, the Fearless Artists, we're really excited to always be working to empower new emerging artists and creatives. But we know, especially for young people, it can be really intimidating entering some of these industries, as you both alluded to as well. You both have some really incredible accomplishments as young professionals in your industries. So just kind of curious about how you navigate being a young person in your industry. Have you faced any challenges because of your age, things like that? I'm also seeing a question here from Donna Ray in the chat that I think lends itself to this as well. Curious about beginning artists, directors, producers, writers, anyone in the industry feel like having a voice in the creative side of the production of your work.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a tough question to answer, because I think that it really depends on like the track that you're moving into. But for me personally, being on the younger end of things, moving into grad school straight out of undergrad, it is definitely, it leads to some imposter syndrome. It absolutely does. But I'm also so grateful that I have found what I really want to be doing this early in my life so that I am really able to pursue it. And moving into any sort of leadership position at this young of an age, it's just, it means asking questions. It means listening. It means not believing that you're right all the time. I think that really just coming in being with humility is the most important way that anybody, really anybody at any age, but I really believe, especially the younger generation moving into leadership positions, that is the way that you're able to really move forward and grow as an artist, as a professional. And Donna, in terms of your question, I think that again, it really depends on what you're working on. But I think for me, I've definitely had experiences on both ends where I am in a room and they do not want to hear my voice, and I'm in a room and that's really valued. And so my advice would be, do what you can to find the rooms that value you. And that's where I believe like the most positive growth can happen as an artist and a professional and a person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kyra, I completely agree with pretty much everything you said. I think being so young and trying to figure everything out, it's definitely will not be perfect in any sense. You'll have good days, bad days, highs and lows. But I think being young is also an opportunity, because I think the word green is thrown around a lot, usually directed at me if I am the youngest in the room, which is true the majority of the time. I just got promoted to an associate producer at age 23, and I know how hard I hustled and I know how hard I worked to get there. Like, the show that I work on, I'm about to get my first on-air credit and I earned every letter of it. But the fact that I'm a producer at age 23 throws people and causes a little bit of doubt, but age is not necessarily equal to life experience. Like, if you know what you're doing and you have the ability to retain new information and learn and ask questions, you're going to be fine. Because if someone says to me, you're green, that's an opportunity to be like, okay, you can answer all my questions. And I got a lot of them and they're all good questions. Mm-hmm. So everything like that is an opportunity. And again, you know how hard you work. There's no need to doubt yourself because everybody will do it for you. Believe me. So I think being young definitely means there's more eyes on you and you have more to prove, but you also have the most to gain and the most drive to make it happen. So I think it's absolutely something you can work to your advantage. And Donna, in regards to your question about being in the room, I also agree with Kyra. There are some situations where nobody wanted my opinion, and sometimes where the director or the executive producer of the show turned to me and asked something directly. So I think formulate what you would do if you were in a position of power to make a decision. And then if there's time afterward, present it if you can to the person in charge and ask what they would do regarding your plan, that scenario. So you learn what you would have done if you were in the position of power. And one day when you are, you won't hesitate. You'll know exactly what to do.
I love those responses. Thank you both. I think there's definitely something to say as well about, and you both touched on this too, about, like young people or just younger generations, like bringing a fresh perspective and, potentially challenging the way things have like always been done in certain industries and, finding that drive to make it better. I do want to go back. I know like Kyra and Hannah, you both kind of mentioned this idea of imposter syndrome, or just like being sure that, being self-assured in the work that you have done. What are some things that you do, if you're ever feeling a little bit of self-doubt, how do you kind of combat that? I know that's a question we get from our students a lot.
Yeah, I can borrow a little bit from Ted Lasso here, I believe. You know that scene where Hannah Waddingham's character says that she like goes in a room somewhere private and like makes herself as big as possible, and that helps her. I do some sort of version of that, and like everybody else has their own thing that kind of like gets you in the zone. But I think what struck me, especially from that scene, was that she said you don't need to be big or loud to be powerful, and that is certainly true. I think also in terms of just you as a person, always be prepared, like stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And again, the self-doubt is going to come from all around you. So I know it's so much easier said than done, but there's no need to do it to yourself. Like you prepare as much as you possibly can for every single scenario because stuff is going to go wrong. That's just the nature of production. It's what I love about theater and I love about film and TV. It looks straightforward, but it never is. So preparing for plans A, B, C, all the way through Z is the best you can do. And then if you're as prepared as possible, you go.
Mhm.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with all of that, Hannah. And I also think that having a support network around you is also incredibly important. Be that mentors, friends, family, people who are really in your corner, because it can be really challenging, especially moving into new positions and new opportunities where you don't know the people in the room. It can be challenging to gauge if you feel like you are moving in the right direction or if you're doing a good job. And having people in your corner, sort of like your hype man, basically, people who are there to remind you that you are doing good work, even when you don't feel like that yourself, can be really just a lifeline when things start to feel really challenging.
Mhm.
I just want to highlight that because Kyra and I, not only do we go to college together, spoiler alert, we are also best friends. And she is certainly that person for me. So it's invaluable.
Back at you.
Oh, I love that.
Cute.
So cute. Oh my goodness. On that note, talking about that support network around you, and I see also with a note from Donna in the chat, like this idea of mentorship is what I want to talk about next. So, at TFA, we really love to establish connections between our students and mentors or advisors, just folks that they can look up to. So I'm curious, what does mentorship mean to you both? Do you have any mentors from the past couple of years that have been really important to your growth in your career?
Yes. So I would say my entire career has been based on one specific mentor that I had, which was in undergrad. When I was a freshman, she was a senior and she was the production stage manager and I was the ASM for the first show that I ever did in college. And she just has been the most unbelievable support system from that first day. She helped me in that position. She then, as she moved forward, she really turned back and gave me a hand up to move me as well. And I think that like truly, I would not be where I am today if I had not met her and been able to work with her. And if she had not been willing to be that mentor. And then since then, I have absolutely found other people who I feel have functioned as mentors in some capacity, but nobody quite that is you can really trace back just how much of an impact she had on my life. And so that is something that I am really passionate about, is like as you are moving up the ladder in whatever industry you are, always turning back and offering your hand to the people that are lower down, because that's the only way that anybody's going to be able to really truly move up.
Yeah, I completely agree. Giving it back, paying it forward when and wherever you can is so vital because actually one of my mentors, who I'll talk a little bit more about in a second, said this to me once, and it is probably like the best piece of sounding advice I've ever received in my life up till this point. She said, the sky would be boring with only one star. So if it's only you, that's not helpful because everybody, it can't just be your perspective. Everybody has so many wonderful things to contribute that are worth hearing and worth implementing into pretty much every facet of everything. So being aware of those around you and helping each other out is truly the only way. And the mentor that said that to me, I recently worked with her on a production shoot for Food Network, and she was knowledgeable and still is knowledgeable and kind. And also, what I loved about her and what I appreciated so much is that I didn't ask her to be my mentor. She just stepped in and said, I'm going to take you under my wing. Here's what's happening. 1, 2, 3, go. And then we went, and it was kind of a whirlwind, but I have asked her for advice and she answers, but she doesn't spoon feed, which I think is the mark of a good mentor. They don't give you the answers when you ask questions. They guide you to see if you can figure it out yourself. and the majority of the time they can, they help you, they make it so you can. And it's invaluable and so special and very touching that she decided to help me in that way. So she's absolutely, in such a short amount of time, because the shoot that we did together was only like a month and a half, 2 months, that she made such a profound impact on me. I will never forget it.
Yeah, and I definitely just want to add on in terms of the idea of like finding a mentor versus like having a mentor sort of show up.
Right.
I definitely want to encourage anybody, in addition to the people who sort of become your mentors and your network just based on common interests and their desire to help. I think that there's also real value in identifying people, especially people who are doing the work that you want to be doing, and reaching out to them. They may not be able to be a full mentor, but I think every connection is an important connection, and in these industries specifically, and reaching out to them and seeing if they can provide you with any sort of insight, an informational interview, a connection, a coffee, really anything, can also be incredibly valuable to, and help with the growth of anybody's career trajectory.
Definitely the power of speaking out. Like, you don't be afraid to send those emails, like nag people, badger them until you get a conversation, because those conversations could lead to so many different things. Absolutely don't be afraid to have that conversation.
I am muted. Okay, unmuted. I'm really glad that you brought that up, both of you, and just the importance of, speaking out and making those connections, reaching out to people. It's reminding me, back last month when we were at our pop-up gallery, we had a conversation with some professionals in the music industry, and they were all talking about this question that we got about, I really need a mentor. I don't know where to look, and like, I have these people that I would love to mentor me, but I'm a little shy, I'm a little scared. I don't want to be rejected, and I can't seem to shake that feeling. So what advice would you give to people to kind of encourage them to, put themselves out there, send those emails, get those coffees, make those connections?
Yeah, I mean, to be totally candid, I absolutely still struggle with that too. The feeling of, oh, I'm just bothering this person. And I think what has really helped me is that now that I am in a bit more of a leadership position, a place where there are people that are reaching out to me in that capacity, I am always so excited when people reach out to me and just thrilled that somebody thinks that I am interesting enough to want my input and advice. And so I like to think that the people that I have reached out to and will continue to reach out to, maybe they feel that way a little bit too. Maybe they are actually happy to have that recognition and to be able to meet with new up and coming people in the industry and share the knowledge that they've worked really, really hard to get. And then the other side of that is, like, the worst they can say is no. And that's really challenging, but I think that it's always worth at least that reach out email. Just put the feelers out there, because even if they don't respond, I've had this happen a couple of times, even if they don't respond, you can, if you meet them later on, you'd be like, oh yeah, I sent you an email about blah, 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 blah. They'll be like, that's right. You absolutely did. I remember reading that. So you'll stick out in their brain just a little bit more, even if you don't get the response right that moment that you're looking for.
Yeah, on that initial response, like, the worthy mentors are busy and might not see it. So in terms of like emailing people and continuously reaching out, there is a difference between tenacity and persistence and going over the top. Like, you obviously emailing them every hour, definitely not the way to go, but every couple weeks or so, if they don't check in, like if they don't respond, to check in and be like, hi, just following up, and wanted to circle back about this opportunity. Because again, people like to feel like their advice is being solicited. That's lovely, exactly as Kyra said, but also the good ones are worth pursuing.
Yeah, I love that. It's reminding me of, what I think pretty much every acting like audition workshop, what they tell you, the going into an audition, the casting director or whoever it is there, they want to see you succeed. They want to be blown away by your performance. No one wants you to be horrible and just not talented or anything. Everyone's looking and rooting for you. So I think bringing that mindset to other things like in being in search of a mentor and things like that is definitely a great way to think about it as well. Everyone, we want to see brilliance and see talent and see amazing things. So awesome. I want to move into a little bit of conversation on accessibility in these industries. I know, Kyra, in your bio, one big highlight is your passion for accessibility, and I know that's something you care about as well, Hannah. I'd love to hear from both of you on, why accessibility is so important and what changes you would like to see in your industries to promote accessibility and make it a little more open to all people.
Absolutely. So the first thing is that my definition of accessibility is very much the full scope. It's not just, the physical accessibility is absolutely a vitally important aspect of that, but there's also economic accessibility, like geographic accessibility. There are so many, specifically in theater, which is a medium that really requires people to go to a place to watch it. Accessibility is something that is often dramatically overlooked, and in a way that I believe is like to the detriment of the production. And so in terms of the ways that I wish to see it improve, it's truly across the board. I think that I love this industry very much, but it is an imperfect industry. And I am grateful that conversations are happening more now than they ever have before about what accessibility means, what it means to bring new people into the space, what it means to make sure that those people feel comfortable and trust that they are going to be safe in that space. And it's a challenge. It absolutely is. But I think that if we are able to move forward as an industry with the mindset that every single person who enters the space should be able to do so easily and comfortably, that will allow us to make positive steps forward.
I completely agree. I also think in terms of accessibility, if you can't physically make it to the theater, there should be another way you can access the art. Like, I think the Hamilton movie, as just a broad example, being filmed and put on Disney Plus as a pro shot musical was a massive step in the right direction, because people who live in middle of nowhere Iowa and, like most people, can't afford the $500 minimum ticket to Hamilton, that gave them an opportunity to see the musical on Disney Plus for some time. So people had the opportunity to view a piece of life-changing art that could then spur them to be the next Lin-Manuel Miranda and create something equally as groundbreaking and necessary in society. So I think, especially theater, the pandemic as a medium where people need to see it, but Zoom theater, I think, was revolutionary and changed the game. So in terms of accessibility, people also need that too, economically, as Kyra put it. So I do think we are beginning to move in the right direction, but a long way to go, because like the internet, theater should not be only for the privileged. It should be for everybody.
Yeah, and one final thing that I definitely wanted to add is that I think really more than anything, what I would like to see is the onus of these changes being placed on leaders rather than the people who are impacted by it. I think that that's something that we see so frequently, is those issues are not addressed until somebody who has been impacted by it stands up and says, like, I'm having an issue, and they have to do the work to change that. And that is a huge problem in our industry. And so I believe that I would like to see that change at the high administrative leader level, in order for it to really become a widespread change that is not the burden of those who are being affected by it.
I think in addition to accessibility, also inclusivity of all groups of people is also massively important. I think we are starting to also move in that direction, but it's definitely a little bit harder because, like, for example, I'm a plus size woman, and plus size roles for women in theater that look like me are reduced to like Tracy in Hairspray, Nadia from Bear, Rose Fenny in Funny Girl, like traumatizing roles or only comedic roles. So changing that landscape up in terms of everybody and anybody can play any role is vitally important. And I think we need that going forward as well.
Awesome. Thank you both. I'm seeing a question here from Jada in the chat. How has theater changed for BIPOC folks as performers and writers? Just any observations?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, to preface, like, I am coming into this conversation as a white woman. So I am coming from an incredible amount of privilege. And so I am not privy to all of the changes that I believe are happening. But at least in the theater sphere, there have been, I mean, just an astronomical increase in the number of discussions that are happening. And I think that that has been a really important shift. A lot of organizations have been created, Theater Producers of Color, Black Theater United, all sorts of organizations that are specifically dedicated to bringing people of color or providing people of color with opportunities that have historically not been afforded to them. And so I think that that, to me, is the biggest shift that I have seen currently. And I am tentatively hopeful that it is going to continue to mean that one generation from now, this is going to be an industry that is significantly more diverse and inclusive, because right now, like, to be very honest, it is not. And the fact that it hasn't been something that has been discussed up until this point is just, it's terrible. And it is a black mark on the industry, I think. And so I'm hopeful that it's moving forward in the right direction, but I'm sorry that I cannot speak to it more directly.
I agree. And also, as a white woman, I want to kind of check my privilege at the door here of this conversation. But I do work as a personal assistant to Douglas Lyons, who last season on Broadway was one of the 7 Black playwrights who had a show on Broadway. And it was a massive deal at the beginning of the season. They were all over the place, photo shoots on magazine covers. And then that was kind of it. So I know that he felt upset about it, that they were blown up as like basically a huge PR stunt and then nothing real kind of came from it. So I would love from his perspective to see more actual representation that's not just here, look, we did this. It actually is prevalent throughout the entire industry. So I do think that the beginning of those conversations are beginning to happen, but the change to actually spur that on and make it for real starts with people who look like me, because white people's existences and places in theater are never not going to be questioned. Black people's and people of color, unfortunately, is still being questioned. So it's up to us to make sure that change actually happens and isn't just temporary or a trending moment for the internet.
Awesome. Thank you both. I'm seeing another question in the chat from Donna Ray. She says there are more persons with disabilities in commercials and television, I'm assuming like on screen. What about production behind the scenes?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak a little bit to theater. Unfortunately, specifically in the Broadway sphere, theaters were built hundreds of years ago and they have a landmark status, which means that they cannot be changed. So the vast majority of theaters on Broadway are like 100% inaccessible backstage, which translates to an incredible percentage of able-bodied people backstage. And unfortunately, that is just, it's the reality. It is unfortunately something that is really challenging to change right now. But of course, physical disability is not the only kind of disability. And I do believe that we are seeing more and more discussions of sort of the mental health and trying to just be more understanding and open and not expecting. I think that there's really a mindset in theater of like, you check yourself at the door. and you have to come in and your entire focus is on this production. And I think that now, especially after the pandemic, more and more people are realizing, no, like these are parts of me that are impacting my daily life and my ability to do this work, and everybody is listening a little bit more. So I do think behind the scenes it is beginning, but it's not nearly where it should be either.
I will say, I think it depends in television on the specific sets that you work on, as is generally is the case. But on the specific show that I work on, there's been a real push to for more diversity, both in front of and behind the camera. And especially because I work on a food show, we want to talk about different cultures all over the world. And because we have more of a diverse production team, we can do that. Not only just can we do it, but we can do it properly in the proper respectful manner. So I think we definitely have more ways to go, of course, but I'm actually quite proud of how diverse my show's production team is. I think it is really smart and also correct.
Awesome. Thank you both. I'm seeing we have like just a couple minutes left. I want to end on like one other question that I just have for both of you. I think first of all, I'm gonna throw the first one to you, Hannah. Hannah is an absolutely incredible actor, like totally blows me away with every performance. So I want to know, Hannah, like how has like performing and being on stage prepared you for the producer role? And then afterwards for Kyra, how has like moving from stage management, given you the skills for administration and things like that?
I think acting has certainly helped prepare for the writing because I wanted to transition into, I still absolutely love acting. It is my first love, and trying to continue to pursue that as well. But it definitely helped in terms of writing, which is the majority of my job now as a producer, writing, blocking, trying to see how the show will work itself out, and then writing in the voices of the people that I know are going to be saying the lines. It has been extraordinarily helpful to kind of get in there, kind of get in that headspace and know, because when I am performing, whether it's on stage or on camera, I know exactly what I want it to look like in terms of how short the lines are. They're easier to remember and kind of go off of and vibe. And just the nature of the theater where everything is live all the time. And everything is more willing to kind of, not willing, but like it's easier to kind of go off the rails, especially if it's live theater. So being able to have that skill set to be like, okay, this went wrong, let's pick up, we got to rally, we got to go, has certainly been helpful, because depending on what kind of show you work on, like the show that I do for Food Network, The Kitchen, is live to tape. So we have the luxury of doing multiple takes if we need to, whereas the Olympics is live. So whatever happens, happens. That like little pockets of chaos that kind of occur when you have 2 minutes to edit a clip and make it happen so it can go back to your anchor who's sitting in the studio to work with them. So you have to write for their mind too, as well as editing the clip. It is certainly helpful. It's kind of organized chaos, I think, is the best way. But having a theater background, I think, is just good for everybody, because even if you are in college or if you're in elementary school and it's just like the school, like cue play honk junior that you guys are doing, there are so many lessons that are transferable out of the theater. It's camaraderie, it's teamwork, it's leadership, it's friendship, the ability to rely on each other. There are so many lessons and skills that you can transfer out of theater that I think are essential for everybody in any aspect. So do theater over sports. I said it.
Ooh, oh my goodness.
Controversial. As someone who has worked for NBC on sports, do theater.
I'm with you. I'm with you, Hannah. Kyra, what do you have to say about that, or what's your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I am such a proponent of being in the room, but knowing at least a little bit about everything that's happening. And I think that that is the most successful way to be a leader, is to be able to step in with the knowledge that is necessary to make something happen. Sometimes being a leader is more of the administrative side of things, and it is keeping things running smoothly from the background. And sometimes it is rolling up your sleeves and getting in a genie and putting lights on the grid. And it's really, really important to have at least a working knowledge of everything that's happening, because not only is it really useful, it's also incredibly important to value every person that is providing a skill to the production. And it's really challenging to know that if you are not moving around and really just has even a little bit of an understanding of what they're doing. And so that's how stage management has been really, really helpful for me. Is as a stage manager, you are working more directly with the technical team, the company management team, all of the backstage teams, and the actors more than a producer or an arts administrator. And so having that skill set and that knowledge base moving into the positions that I'm in now have allowed me, I think, to really, roll up my sleeves and help. And it's really important to me to feel helpful.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. I absolutely adore this conversation. I think this was so much fun, and it's so much wonderful advice from you two to all of our audience here today. I want to thank you both so much for joining in. I'm going to quickly jump through just a couple quick announcements before we wrap up. But let me see here. So again, just real fast, don't forget TFA merch is available up on tfapopup.com. You can also RSVP to our upcoming events on our link tree and also on tfapopup.com. Donations are open for our next pop-up gallery and coming soon. It may seem like a while away, but we're already getting to mid-July. So December 1st through 4th, the Liberation of Beauty for TFA Pop-Up 22 is coming up really, really soon. And yes, Bruce, so great to see you. Thank you everyone for joining us. Next week, we have an artist circle featuring a fantastic photojournalist, Monsi. So she's going to be with us on July 17th from 2 to 3 Eastern time. She's a photo intern at the Washington Post and recently had one of her images on the front page. So we're really excited to chat with her. And that's all I have for everyone today. So again, can we get a wonderful giant round of applause for Hannah and Kyra? I thank you so much for being here. You two, I know we talked about like people we look up to and mentors, like you two just being in the program of theater and dance at GW, totally look up to both of you so much. And I can't wait to see where everyone continues to go in the future. So thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Maggie.
Of course. Awesome. I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of your Sunday. Of course, keep in touch with TFA. Follow us on Instagram. You can also, anyone, feel free to reach out to me at any point with any ideas, topics, anything like that for our upcoming artist circles. My email is in the chat. Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic day. Thank you all. Thanks, everyone.